Hey everybody out there, this is Seto, and this is something that a lot of you guys have asked me to do in the past, and it's a video that I really want to do. And hopefully, eventually, maybe Star Joker out there, or one of my good friends, one of the good subscribers out there can help me out one day. But I'll do this eventually when I do get the chances. Do one of those draw my lives, which is something a lot of people have brought up to me about before doing, because a lot of people that have been subscribed for a long time or been viewers for a long time and followed me know that this channel is just not a Yu-Gi-Oh channel. This is a family type of channel, I guess I consider it personally. This is something where after my dad passed away, it became something else. I guess you could say it became an outlet for me. Not to just do Yu-Gi-Oh videos, but make it a little bit more about Yu-Gi-Oh. You know, Yu-Gi-Oh, yeah, that's the main topic we focus on, but it's also, you know, an outlet for me. It was a de-stressor during those times, those dark days of my past, I guess you could say, and it's been something that I've thoroughly enjoyed doing, because I let you guys know about the person behind the camera, and this is one of those type of videos. We will do an update video about my life and everything, so you guys get to know what I'm working on, just things of that nature. I plan to do that right after this video, and this video may include some of those things. But I just want to talk about it. So I'm going to be pretty much talking about my life, and you guys may find this very boring. So I apologize to those that are not. This is not a Yu-Gi-Oh video or very boring, but a lot of you guys out there have asked about this, and I'm not trying to sound self-centered, but this is a topic and something that everybody's been wanting me to discuss. So enough aside, let's talk about me, which feels very odd to talk about myself. But what about me? So pretty much the things that people have always wondered about me is, you know, what happened? Well, I've lived in the same state since I was a kid, literally. I've lived in Virginia since I was literally born in Virginia. I was born in Fairfax County Hospital, and lived in pretty much Virginia for my entire life. My family was one of the first immigrant families over here probably to the United States. We've been here, I know our roots go back to, I guess you could say, Ireland and England, the original Rogers roots, that is, and we pretty much have lived in the United States since probably, I would say probably around the early 1700s, maybe 1600. I think we traced it all the way back to some of the, you know, 1698, I think it was. We traced it back to. That's when our first, you know, official family records show us in Virginia. But we've lived in Virginia our entire lives. We're a very old family. That's what I was told a long time ago. And growing up, I was pretty much one of those kids that everybody else during that time frame in the 90s, because I grew up in the 90s, always loved playing Power Rangers and Pokemon. And my favorite thing when growing up was trains, Tonka trucks, you know, little like machines, you know, destroying Earth, you know, building buildings, you know, the construction type of, you know, things you see. And I always loved history. History was my favorite thing growing up. Everybody else was like, oh, Power Rangers, yeah, you know, all that stuff. And here I am with a history book, learning all the Civil War generals, and, you know, learning about ancient Egypt and Greece, and, you know, the Roman Empire, and, you know, feudal Japan and China. That was me. You know, everybody's off playing Power Rangers and Pokemon, and I'm doing that. But then the Pokemon craze did catch up to me. I mean, growing up, my favorite shows to watch, if you lived in America, you probably know these shows. I don't know if you lived outside the U.S., you may not know these shows, but Thomas the Tank Engine was my hero growing up. I loved Thomas the Tank Engine. Even to this day, I love Thomas the Tank Engine, and would still watch Thomas the Tank Engine cartoons, even if they're for kids. I still will watch them because I love Thomas that much. Arthur was a good show I used to watch when I was a kid. All the good old Cartoon Network shows, from Ed, Edd and Eddy, Courage the Cowardly Dog, Johnny Bravo, you know, Dexter's Laboratory, Powerpuff Girls, all those good old shows that you remember growing up with as a kid. Nickelodeon with Hey Arnold, you know, all those 90s shows, and early 2000s shows I used to watch on Nickelodeon. Hey Arnold, iCarly, Victorious. All these, I mean, I know those are kind of more modern, but a lot of those old ones I remember watching as a kid, you know, Hey Arnold was so awesome. There's so many, Doug was another one I used to watch a lot, but there's a lot of these shows that I used to watch growing up as a kid. And then I got into the Pokemon craze. That's when I pretty much started playing Pokemon and really getting into Pokemon, and I love Pokemon. And I was actually introduced to Pokemon on a very sad day of my life, believe it or not, if you want to hear something a little bit morbid. So, we were at my mother's funeral. My mother passed away when I was 10 years old. She was diagnosed I was 10 years old. My brother was about 2 or 3 years old. She died in September, I think it was 15th, 1999, I think it was. She died of cancer, ovarian cancer. If you know what ovarian cancer is, you can look it up. That means your ovaries have cancer in them, cancer cells, and they spread to the rest of her body and killed her. We did not know that she had it until the morning before she died. Granted, this is in the late 90s, 1999, but still, the doctor that was taking care of her said that she doesn't have cancer. And my dad kept saying, I think she has cancer, I think she has cancer. And they took her to and he was a specialist, he was considered the best in the state. And then we took her to just a regular doctor who did some scans, and was like, I don't know what this doctor's telling you, but she's got cancer. And then they were going to go for treatment the next day, and she passed away that night. And she told my father, and my dad, before he passed away, always used to tell me the story. He said, the night before your mom passed away, she said, take care of the kids for me, And my dad was like, no, you'll live to be an old woman, you'll be fine. And she's like, no, promise me you'll take care of the kids. Promise me you'll do the best you can. And he swore to the day he died that was true. And I believe him. That was my mom. She loved taking care of us. She was a librarian. She was a children's librarian. She used to take me to puppet shows, all these things, craft shows with my grandparents. All these things she used to take me to. And I remember a lot of her. My brother doesn't. So I always have to tell him about our parents, because I'm the one that remembers my mother. He doesn't remember anything about my grandmother, who died a year before she did, a week apart. My grandmother was my mother's mother, and she died literally a year before my mother did, in 1998, and died literally 3 days apart from my mother. 3 days. Like a day, I think it was 2 or 3 days right before she died. And she lived with us for 5 years after she was in the nursing home. And she was a sweet woman, but she was very, one of the old Catholic women that, was Irish Catholic, and, that type of, different generation, pretty much what I'm saying. But very nice. And my mom was just a sweetheart. I remember nothing but good things about her. She reminds me a lot of my girlfriend that I have currently. I tell her that every day. She's like, oh my gosh, I remind you of your mother. Disgusting. But it's very, very true. And I never forgot the day my mother passed away, though. I heard this yelling and screaming in the house. And my dad opens the door and my brother's in his arm. He's like, Kevin, go downstairs to the basement. I'm like, okay. And as I'm coming out my door, so I'm coming out my door and I make a left right to where the main entrance of the door is. And there's a stretcher there. My mom's not on it. Just an empty stretcher. I was like, oh, okay. Go downstairs. The entire day at school, everybody's downstairs. Like, oh my gosh, all the neighbors are there and whatnot. And everybody's like talking to me. Are you okay, Kevin? You okay? Yeah, I'm fine. I'm showing them my Pokemon collection because this is the late 90s. I was into Pokemon a little bit. And everything of that nature. And, I got a little bit into Pokemon from my friends at school, but I wasn't like playing the Game Boy yet. And yeah, I was doing that and whatnot. And then I went to school that day. My dad's like, you want to go to school? Are you sure you want to go to school, Kevin? I'm like, yeah, Dad, I'll go to school. I'm fine. Moms are fine, right? Yeah, Mom's fine. Mom's fine, my dad's saying. And then I'm at one of my classes and I asked the teacher, hey, can I go call my dad? I'm worried about my mom, I was just worried because, there was a problem this morning. And she's like, sure, go call your mom. Send you down to the principal's, to call my mom, the office. So I go down there to call my mom. My dad is crying on the phone. He's bawling. I was like, Dad, how's Mom? Is Mom okay? I was like, yeah. He's like, well, Kevin, do you want to come home? Do you want to go home? I didn't know. She had already passed away by then. Later on I learned. But she had passed away already. She passed away before she got to the hospital. She collapsed in the shower and I passed away, but I remember that. I remember it just like it was yesterday, literally. Those are things that don't go away. And believe me, if you guys don't, I'm going to tell you this, if you guys don't like your parents and you don't like them or you just have arguments with them, treasure them, no matter what. Respect them, at least love them, because when they're gone, they're gone. When somebody that you care for, because they're family and whatnot, when they're gone, they're gone. I know they may have done bad things to you, but they're family, okay? That's just where I was brought up. And that was what happened to my mother. But we were going to the burial site, and one of my dad's friends, sons played Pokemon. And I got introduced to the Pokemon Game Boy game. and I was playing. I didn't know how to play it. I just thought, if you remember the old Pokemon games, it kept showing all the different Pokemon, like they had red right there and it had all the different Pokemon. I thought the game was, you just press the A button and they would, capture the Pokemon, and that's how you capture the Pokemon. I didn't know actually playing the game was walking around doing the controls. I just thought, hey, look, I just caught the Pokemon. Oh, I caught another one. Let me catch all 150 just like this. This is so easy. This is such an easy game. Didn't know you had to go around and play the game. And I would actually reset the game if it sent me in there because I thought that was a busted part of the game. Yeah, that's how I thought you played Pokemon. But growing up, I grew up with Pokemon, and pretty much my grandmother, my grandfather, and my grandmother and grandfather took care of me with my dad for a long period of time up to that point. They took care of me, they raised me. One of my neighbors that one of my tutors, Miss Baker, actually took care of me pretty much for a lot and helped me grow up, and pretty much became my mother figure after my mother passed away, and still is my mother, besides my biological mother, who I love and whatnot, who's passed away. And my mother had found her as a tutor for me, and we've grown into a family, son, mother type of situation. She's an amazing woman. And she took care of me, Miss Baker did, and my grandmother raised me pretty much too, and my dad did. And we played, pretty much that time frame was very different. We would go up still, try to do things that me and my mother used to do with my dad, go to trips, do things like that, but we really didn't go on that many trips growing up. We didn't have the money. My dad didn't have a job. He was self-employed pretty much as a card person, and that's pretty much what happened with him. So fast forward a couple of years, I go through high school. I went to private school for 8 years, I guess you could say. I went eight years to private school, did high school. That was fun. Growing up in middle school, though, in high school, I did track and football for 8 years. That was very fun. One thing that people don't know about me is when I was graduating in high school, and I do not lie, I didn't know this until one of my friends told me. I knew I was on the homecoming ballot my senior year. I know they apparently had enough votes to be on the ballot. And one of my friends who was part of the homecoming community, who actually did the counts, told me after homecoming, one of my good friends won, that I was 3 votes away from being homecoming king. I was like, what? You're telling? I was like, really? She's like, yeah, you actually were, Kevin. And I was very surprised about that my senior year, but high school was very fun for me. I know a lot of people probably don't like high school, but I was one of those guys growing up in high school that knew everybody. I knew the jocks, I knew the geeks, I knew the nerds, I knew everybody. I knew everyone. The loners, the smokers, the drug dealers. I was friends with everyone. That was me growing up in high school. I knew everybody, and everybody knew me to some degree, I guess you could say. Everybody knew me as the guy that brought food. They used to call me the food druggie because I always brought food, like pies and cakes to track practice, and we go on trips and whatnot, and it was so fun. That was actually how I used to travel growing up. Is in high school, middle school, I would go to different meets and events. So I'd be going to New York or Tennessee or North Carolina or West Virginia or Maryland, and this is how I traveled. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. This is how I traveled a lot. Granted, I was doing Yu-Gi-Oh at the time. I was playing with my buddies. I had been playing still ever since elementary school, because in elementary school, that's how I got into the game of Yu-Gi-Oh. I was introduced to it. Back when I was in middle school, I was in 6th grade, I think it was, and a lot of those 6th graders that I went to private school with went to the same, just decided not to go to private school in high school, but go to public school, and so we still played as a group and whatnot. So that's how I got we became more competitive as time went on. But how I got into Yu-Gi-Oh, again, another morbid situation was Yu-Gi-Oh had just been pretty much TCG released, and pretty much to make this very short and quick, and that same week, there was a gun shooting around my area. It was called the Beltway Sniper, and he had been going around DC and shooting all these different people in 2003, 2002 it was. And they hadn't caught him. He had shot kids, adults, old people, just been going around shooting random people for no reason. So everybody was scared, So they would literally have adults out there with protected bulletproof vests opening our doors to let us out to go into school and saying, run to the school, run to the school, because somebody right down the street had been shot by this guy. And so we were staying inside for like a month and a half. We were inside, indoors, playing Yu-Gi-Oh, no recess. And we decided to play Yu-Gi-Oh. And granted, this isn't a Catholic school, so they thought eventually that Yu-Gi-Oh was the dark arts, and we were doing Ouija boards and stuff like that. So they would confiscate our Yu-Gi-Oh cards. And that's a different story for a different day, but there's some very interesting stories from back then. I'll probably do a separate video one day on that. But fast forward, in high school we were still doing stuff like that, like I was mentioning earlier. I knew everybody in high school, we were still playing. I started going to regionals again and things like that. In middle school and high school, when I had time between track and football practice, one of my good friends, not Vladimir, what was his name? I want to say it was Vladimir. His family was Russian. I just remember that because he had this thick Russian accent, and he would duel with me all the time. And Vladimir was a good guy growing up in high school. I remember. People probably don't remember. His nickname was Vladimir. I just remember that we called him the Russian player. And he and I, we used to go to regionals sometimes with Tim and Jim. Jim and Tim, I know it sounds so, and stuff like that. But we used to do that sometimes on the weekdays and weekends. And I had my girlfriend at the time. That was fun. And I pretty much got out of Yu-Gi-Oh! My junior and senior year because I had some girlfriends I was dating at the time. And I was like, okay, high school, got a girlfriend, that's a big priority over Yu-Gi-Oh! So for about a year and a half, I did still play the game. I read up on articles, here and there, but I had my pulse on the game, but I didn't buy cards. I just sat there with the cards I had, didn't sell them. All my playmats that I won from regionals, didn't sell them, and just pretty much played, spent time with my girls, try to focus on my college, my future, and things like that. And then I got into college, and that was very fun. And pretty much, in college, I decided, you know what, I want to work as a history teacher. And I said to my friends, you know what, I think, what I'm going to do right now, guys, I think I'm going to end this video right here, if that's okay with you, because we got 16 minutes, and we've pretty much caught all the way up from, I guess you could say, me being young and playing Pokemon all the way up to high school, me graduating. So I think I'll end the video right here, and I'm going to do another one right after this, continuing on with my story, because actually I'm having fun doing this, even though I thought this would be a boring video. But I know some of you guys may find it boring. But yeah, I'll catch up with you guys in a bit. I'll probably put part 2 up. It'll be right on maybe an hour or so after this video. And see you guys then. But yeah, we'll continue with high school and life after high school going into college. So it'll be fun right now, guys. So I'll see you guys in a bit.